Hey guys, it's me, Minecraft World. So, welcome to my top 5 movies of 2024. This year has been, at least to me, more of a mixed bag in comparison to 2023. On a personal end, a lot of good stuff happened with some negativity. I finally started learning animation, so if you want to go check that out, I have a video about that on my channel. It's my most recent video as of uploading this. And I also have been expanding a bit on my critical analysis mannerisms, discussing why do I like things, why do I not, all that kind of thing. It's honestly pretty fun, though it can be kind of frustrating. And with that avenue, I've made a lot of friends and I've done a lot of things. I also had the best weekend of my freaking life. We'll get to that. And on the media end, I think this year has been pretty solid. Yeah, it hasn't been perfect. There are some stinkers, some controversies. We'll get to that. And a lot of pretty well done stories. I think a good amount of media found a balance this year. Death Battle had come back from the brink of extinction and delivered its best episode yet, with 3 other good episodes among it that have me hopeful for the future. Honestly, kind of excited to see what they do next, especially with some specific episodes that they've already hinted at. And Lego Monkey Kid had its best season from a writing standpoint. From an animation standpoint, yeah, it's a bit of a downgrade, but the writing absolutely made up for every single bit of animation downgrade that there was. And it wasn't to say it looked bad, it just wasn't as good as the previous seasons. But yeah. I think without further rambles, let's get on to it. Number 5, and I know this is going to be a controversial one for several people who are probably watching this. Before y'all get off me, grill me later. I've explained my thoughts on this movie multiple times. Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Look, this is a film that many people would normally despise, but you know what I said I had the time of my life about a minute ago? Yeah, this is that movie. The best weekend of my life was G-Fest, and going to watch this film in a crowd of Godzilla fans, cheering at the top of my lungs with my friends by my side, was absolutely magical. This film will forever be integrated in that. But even outside of that, I still think there are parts of the movie that I did actively enjoy. Yeah, the human cast is very much undercooked. And yes, a lot of the storytelling is nonsensical or insane. But 2 things. One, being a bit more familiar with the wider kaiju genre, I don't think it's as weird as it seems. 2, I also found myself enjoying the things that balance it. Yeah, the story itself was very hit or miss, but I found the personalities of the monsters themselves to be, and the way that the monsters themselves were used, especially Kong's story, to be interesting enough to see where they go. I found myself absolutely reveling with Scar King in his characterization, despite the fact that, yes, his character is flawed, to put it mildly. I absolutely enjoyed my time with a lot of the human casts, especially Trapper, despite the fact that a lot of them really weren't given much to do outside of Gia, and even then it was one scene. And yeah, I might go on, but I've already said a lot on it on many previous platforms, streams earlier this year, that I've participated in. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I know there's going to be specific people who are calling me out here, and sure, okay, go ahead. I don't care. I loved this film. Yes, I'm fully willing to criticize it. No, I'm not opposed to fun. This film being in fifth place in my top 5 favorites is enough to point that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, Tiamat deserved better. Number 4, Inside Out 2. I've been a big fan of the Inside Out movies in recent years, and partially because of their conceptual intrigue. Yes, the concept of emotions being alive in a human's head and seeing how they operate is nothing new, but the way that Inside Out itself goes about it, in a way, just feels like it works. It's kind of difficult to explain, but it adds a sense of maturity and intrigue to these characters, giving the emotions themselves their own distinct and, in a way, lovable characters. And Inside Out 2 was very much a solid follow-up in that regard. Anxiety is a very, very, very compelling character and villain. Joy's continuous arc absolutely adds to a lot of the stakes and mannerisms of the story, which, in turn, give both her and Anxiety a very unique dynamic, and one that naturally felt needed, considering where we were with the previous film. You're not going to be redoing the arc of Joy and Sadness again. As well as the fact that, speaking of which, Sadness got taken out of the A story early on and began to be involved in the B story, which helped a lot with fleshing Joy's character out, seeing how she bounces off of the other 3 in a similar situation to this one, to the previous film. Yes, plot-wise it's kind of identical, but it also comes across as distinct because, in a way, the stakes are higher. I really don't have much to say. The animation is absolutely beautiful. Especially the third act climax, the anxiety attack in the third act climax. It's Jesus, that is amazing. Yeah, I really don't have much to say. I loved Inside Out 2. I absolutely loved it. Number 3, Ultraman Rising. This movie was the second most surprising film of the year, and I say that in the best way possible. The animation is, for one, just amazing. Yeah, the art style can be weird. Why does Ultraman look like a triangle? But the story itself absolutely lends credence to the art style, and the fact that the animation itself looks as visually stunning helps with the art style. It's quite heartwarming. Funny story, when we first watched this, my mom actually compared it to How to Train Your Dragon, and I can kind of see why. But also, in a way, that helped a lot of how the story went through. But also, it was just heartwarming, just getting to see Ken Sato learn to appreciate the world around him, as well as through the eyes of not just a child, but a child kaiju. The very thing that he was tasked with fighting, and the very thing and one of the things that he has issues with. Considering that's set up with the interviewee's daughter. I forgot her name, but yeah. As well as that, the dynamic with his father and them coming closer together, as well as just the whole theme of fatherhood, just adds a lot to it. Number 2, Sonic 3. This was one of the most hyped movies of the year for me and many others, and it is not hard to see why. This film was absolutely brimming with a passion and understanding of the source material that no other video game adaptation has ever had. Not even the Mario movie from last year. It understood what made Adventure 2, the original game, and just the Sonic games as a whole work, and built off of the backbone of the previous two movies, which themselves were already pretty solid, and expanded it from there, giving Sonic a very nice arc and a very cool parallel to Shadow, as well as giving Jim Carrey the best role that he's had ever. Good God, he brought his A game twice. As well as that, just, it's a visual spectacle. The fact that Sonic himself always looks consistently amazing, and the climactic sequence added to that. Plus, with Junkie bringing something of an A game in that bit. He didn't redeem himself for GXK, but still. At the end of the day, Sonic 3 was absolutely joyous in every way, shape, or form. Honest to God, I wanted to keep cheering while this film was happening, but I held it in as long as I could until the post-credit scene. By God, that was amazing. So, before we get to the number one pick, I have some honorable mentions to go through. Honorable mention number 1, A Quiet Place, Day 1. I quite enjoyed myself with this one. This was another one of my most hyped films, considering A Quiet Place is one of my favorite films of all time, partially because of the family dynamic and the general concept. I think, while it's not perfect, I think it absolutely adds a lot of credence to it. And Day 1 didn't really disappoint in comparison. Yes, it doesn't have a lot of the same things that made the first A Quiet Place good, but instead it tries to do its own thing with the concept while sticking it in the same world. The characters themselves are quite enjoyable, especially our protagonist, whom I found myself absolutely enthralled with her story and how that played out. There's a very somber sense of tragedy, but also a very heartwarming sense of just relief as she continues to go through her arc of learning to appreciate the world around her, especially during her dying times. And that's not to say the other characters aren't terrible. The British man, he's far from horrid. He's honestly quite compelling to bounce off of, considering he is in a similar position, though not in the exact same way, being a foreigner who came in and is experiencing a world that is, for the most part, unknown to him. And with them both having to manage to survive in this chaos. I don't really have much to say about this one, but, well, I enjoyed it. Honorable mention number 2, Deadpool and Wolverine. This was another one of the most hyped films of the year for me, and, God damn it, it lived up to that hype. Yes, this film is incredibly contentious in a similar manner to GXK. I can't deny that watching this film, there was a sense of, I want to say, relief. In a similar manner to GXK, where it was just kicking back and actively having fun with whatever the film threw at the wall. It was quite the fun experience. Hugh Jackman was fantastic as always in the role. He tends to do a good job in the roles that he's in, even with the movie qualities themselves not being up to snuff. Ryan Reynolds was pretty fun in this film as usual, even if he just continues doing the Deadpool shtick again, though he is playing Deadpool. Cassandra Nova, while initially not making sense, does actually add a bit of intrigue to the story, and in herself comes across as an intimidating threat. The rest of the story was just quite enjoyable. It's difficult to put my thought process in there, but I can't really say much beyond I enjoyed it. It felt nice to finally kick back and enjoy this and GXK. And then finally, honorable mention number 3, Nosferatu. This film absolutely blew me away. It's uncomfortable, it's dark, it's slow, and that is absolutely amazing. That helps so much with selling the story. Count Orlok comes across as an absolute threat and terror in every single scene he's in. You only get to see him twice, but his presence is always felt even before you hear his name. As well as that, the dynamic with the human casts, Ellen is a very compelling female lead. Thomas is also, honest to God, I would say this is the better interpretation in comparison to the original, considering he comes across as just a guy thrown into this world that he has to understand, dealing with forces that he doesn't know. As well as that, Willem Dafoe, my goat, as Van Franz, was just... Dude killed it. Dude absolutely killed it. I know people have problems with his eccentricness, but being someone who likes the original Dracula book and knows the character from the original Dracula book, this eccentricity... He's only eccentric once, but even then, this is about as on point as you can get for Van Helsing. Atmospherically, it's amazing, with an ever-looming darker tone, only broken up by some warmer tones, and even then, there is still a sense of unease and an unsafety in there. And, yeah, what else is there to say? Nosferatu is amazing. And for my number one pick, Transformers 1. This movie blew me the hell away. From start to finish, this movie blew me the hell away. I was expecting something to be fun. I was not expecting a surprisingly profound and actively endearing dynamic between Optimus and Megatron, where you actually kind of felt sorry for the fact that Megatron was going down the path, understood him, but also you didn't want that. As well as just having a very fun story in its own right. The voice cast absolutely killed it with the role. Chris Hemsworth threw it out the park with starting off as just his own interpretation, this young, sparky Optimus Orion Pax, but as the film goes, he learns to mature and stick up for what it's right, ultimately gaining an accent akin to that of Peter Cullen, though not quite there yet. And it's implied that if, please be a when, we get a sequel, it's going to develop more into that Peter Cullen. As well as that, Brian Tyree Henry threw it all out as D16, starting off as just a chill, though honest-to-God reserved character that does have a small unhinged side, with that unhinged side soon being fueled in a very rapid and hard-to-control rate, where as soon as his motivation is found, he's given all the tools to enact them. And it's shown exactly the faults of his faults of his fall into becoming the ruthless tyrant of Megatron. As well as that, Scarlett Johansson as Alita added a lot of spunkiness to the character and just gave Alita a badass, yet not overwhelmingly badass character. It was in a similar way to Princess Peach in the Mario movie, where she was given a lot more to do, but she didn't overshadow the main character too much. If, in a way, being a catalyst for Pax to become Optimus Prime. And B-127, I can understand why people called him annoying, but to me, he's just fun. He was just a fun character. And as well as that, Sentinel Prime, this is probably my favorite interpretation of the character. And from literally everything else. Visually, this movie is absolutely astounding, especially with the surface world sequences. The action is enthralling and, in a way, creative, something that we haven't really seen Transformers do in a while. Honest to God, this is the movie that Transformers fans quite needed, being a film that properly reintroduces the audience to these characters, properly sets them up, and brings them into a different light. Big shame that the film was treated the same way the 86 movie was. Well, box office wise, it was quite well received, deservedly so. And yeah, those are my top 5 movies of 2024. I know there's going to be people who watch this and are going to call me stupid, idiot, and blabbity bloop. But honest to God, I had a great time this year. I think a lot of these movies were just really fun, especially G-Fest, going to see GXK and going to watch Transformers 1 for the first time. That was my first proper IMAX setting, and it was absolutely worth it. God. Here's hoping that 2025 can continue with the media stuff, though I'm honestly kind of nervous. And also a little frustrated with some of the upcoming lineup, especially that How to Train Your Dragon remake. And here's hoping to a survivable 2025. Anyways, I think that's all. Take care, guys. Peace.